Before this video starts, I'd just like to plug my Patreon. For as little as $2 a month, you get early ad-free access to all videos, and higher tiers get their name on the screen and a shout-out at the end of each video. Videos will also be mostly uncensored on there too, so if that interests you, click the link in the description or the pinned comment. Vincent Margera, better known as Don Vito, was a recurring personality on MTV's Viva La Bam, the reality series centered on his nephew, Bam Margera. He also appeared in the CKY videos and the Jackass franchise. On the show, he was played up as an overweight, loud, incoherent bumbling uncle who could barely string a sentence together, to the point that his dialogue had to be subtitled. Fans, of course, found it funny.
Bam, I am Abu Dabu, I ain't got beer, and then I got to go to the I got no luggage. I'm going to grab your neck, you're a jerk off. Everybody else, that takes 40 hours to get to Paris. Bam, what the get me out of this moment.
We'll call you.
I'm so sorry, you're going to take my commission. I'm taking one of these as my commission now. One of these little cops.
You know what? No, we just show you right out the door. We'll call you.
I'll go to another place and get a job there.
Oh, hey, I didn't want my wife to help me. I didn't have a Budweiser attack. Help me, please. Give me more Budweiser.
He became enough of a draw that MTV sent him to do promotional appearances and autograph signings. In August 2006, one of those appearances was at a skate park inside a mall in Lakewood, Colorado, in which Vito was accused of groping 3 young girls who had lined up for photos with him. The girls were 2 12-year-olds and 1 14-year-old. Prosecutors said that he grabbed their and butt. He was charged with 3 counts of sexual assault on a child. As a result of the arrest, all footage of him was cut from the theatrical and DVD release of Jackass No. 2, and he also became persona non grata among the cast and did not appear on Bam's next show, Unholy Union. His trial would take place in October 2007 in Golden, Colorado. A teenage boy testified that he saw Margera grab at the girls who came around the table for photos. The defense argued that Margera was a benign bumbler and that his signature flailing arm movements may have been mistaken for groping. His sister-in-law, April Margera, testified she'd never seen him fondle anyone, but on cross-examination, the prosecutor showed her 3 photographs that appeared to show him trying to fondle women's breasts. On October 31st, the jury came back with a split verdict, guilty on 2 counts, acquitted on the 3rd. When the first guilty count was read, Vito apparently threw himself to the floor, screaming, quote, "Just kill me now," and "I can't spend the rest of my life in jail." Nearly a dozen officers surrounded him as the judge tried to quickly dismiss the jurors from the room. In December 2007, he was sentenced to 10 years of probation, and he was ordered to register as a sex offender. He was also barred from portraying the Don Vito character in any capacity for a decade, and required to undergo mental health evaluation and treatment for alcohol abuse. He also received 2 additional years of probation after pleading guilty to cocaine possession while out on bond during the case.
Ben, what's going on with Don Vito?
Don Vito, it got settled. It's like, dude, Colorado, like these small-time lawyers, they want to get their name in the paper, and you know, it's like the Kobe Bryant thing. It's like they just stretch it out for 2 years when it could have ended in 2 months, but it's done now, so cheers on Vito.
Following this, his health began to decline drastically after he had suffered from severe obesity and alcoholism for most of his life. His nephew Bam said he fell into depression after the conviction, and in the last year of his life, his organs began failing him, leading to extreme weight loss that was visible in the mugshots he would have taken. In October 2015, he collapsed at his home in Westchester, Pennsylvania, and went into a coma. He died on November 15, 2015, at the age of 59. By the way, if you're new to this channel, or if you've been watching for a while and you still haven't subscribed, please consider doing so because it really helps me out. Also, be sure to click the notification bell so you never miss out on one of my videos. Also, consider giving this video a like as well, because that will really help out too. Anyway, back to the video. Josh Duggar was the oldest of 19 children in an ultra-conservative Baptist family from northwest Arkansas. Starting in 2000, the Duggars appeared on Discovery Health specials, and by 2008, they had their own TLC series, 19 Kids and Counting. They ran the show for years and turned the family into household names. Josh was front and center as the eldest son, eventually getting married on camera and starting a family of his own. In 2015, reports surfaced that Josh had molested multiple underage girls between 2000 and 2004, when he was between 12 and 16 years old. 4 of the victims were his own sisters, and his parents had apparently known about this for years. Authorities had actually looked into it back in 2006 after receiving a tip from a family friend, but concluded that the statute of limitations on any possible charges had expired. TLC cancelled 19 Kids and Counting in July 2015. A month later, the Ashley Madison breach revealed Josh had been paying for sexual services while married. He issued public apologies, blaming a pornography addiction, and went into a faith-based treatment program. TLC launched a spin-off called Counting On in late 2015 that focused on the other Duggar siblings. Josh wasn't featured, but his family remained connected to the franchise. That show ran until 2021. On April 29, 2021, Josh Duggar was arrested by US Marshals on charges of receiving and possessing child sex abuse material. Federal agents had actually executed a search warrant at his used car lot in Springdale, Arkansas back in November 2019. They found that Duggar had installed a password-protected petition on his work computer to get around monitoring software that's been up to report his online activity to his wife. On that hidden partition, investigators found over 600 images and videos depicting the use of children, including prepubescent victims. One agent described a particular video file amongst the top 5 worst things he had ever had to examine. On December 9, 2021, a jury unanimously found Duggar guilty on both counts. He was taken into custody immediately. His defense team asked for 5 years. Prosecutors pushed for the maximum of 20. On May 25, 2022, the judge sentenced Duggar to roughly 12.5 years in prison with no possibility of parole, followed by 20 years of supervised release, during which he must register as a sex offender and can have no unsupervised contact with minors, including his own children. He was also fined $50,100. His lawyers appealed, but the courts upheld the conviction in August 2023, and the Supreme Court declined to hear the case in 2024. His release date, after a sentence extension, reportedly tied to a contraband cell phone, is currently listed as October 2032. He spent years presenting himself as a family values advocate. None of it was real. It was just a front he put on to hide what a disgusting monster he really is. Jeffrey Paschal appeared on Season 4 of TLC's 90 Day Fiancé in 2020, where cameras followed his long-distance relationship with a Russian woman named Varya Malina. He was a 44-year-old from Knoxville, Tennessee, and the show presented him as a guy looking for love overseas. What TLC viewers were not initially told was that Paschal had already been indicted by a grand jury for aggravated kidnapping, domestic assault, interference with an emergency call, and vandalism before his season even aired. The charges stem from an incident on June 9, 2019. Knox County deputies responded to a domestic disturbance call at a home in West Knoxville and found Paschal's then-fiancée, Kristen Wilson, with a large bruise on her forehead, along with bruises on her back, arms, and inside her lip. She told officers Paschal had grabbed her by the neck and slammed her head against the wall multiple times. In a later petition for a protective order, she described him bashing her face into steps and walls, dragging her through the house by her hair, and throwing her body into furniture. She said he disabled her phone so she couldn't call for help. She eventually escaped to a neighbor's house after he fell asleep. This wasn't Paschal's first run-in with the law. He had prior drug convictions in Blount County, Tennessee, for possession with an intent to sell, and 2 federal drug trafficking convictions out of the Eastern District of Texas. He served prison time for dealing drugs years earlier, and acknowledged it on camera during his season, framing it as ancient history. When his domestic violence charges became public, fans started a petition to get him removed from the show. TLC ultimately barred him from participating in the season's tell-all episode, but they had already aired his segments. In October 2021, after a 2-day trial, a jury found Paschal guilty of aggravated kidnapping, domestic assault, and interference with an emergency call. He testified that his ex-fiancee's injuries were self-inflicted, claiming she ran into a door while intoxicated. The jury didn't believe him. The judge revoked his bail on the spot and sent him straight to custody. At sentencing, prosecutors argued Paschal should be classified as a Range 2 offender because of his prior drug convictions, which meant a harsher penalty. They also presented proof from the victim and his ex-wife about previous incidents of domestic violence, plus a jail video showing Paschal trying to get people to bring his children to the victim's house to pressure her into asking for leniency. On February 3, 2022, Paschal was sentenced to 18 years in prison without the possibility of parole. The Knox County District Attorney said afterward that no other victims would be abused by him for a long time. He appealed his sentence, but in September 2023, the Court of Criminal Appeals affirmed that the conviction and the sentence stood.
Mom and Dad talked about having kids before they got married, and they decided they would try for 12 kids.
He was from a family with 9 children.
She had no clue what she was agreeing to.
That's right.
Toby Willis was the patriarch of the Willis clan, a large musical family from Nashville that performed Irish-inspired roots music. He and his wife Brenda had 12 children, 8 girls and 4 boys. The family reached the quarterfinals of America's Got Talent in 2014 and landed their own TLC series, The Willis Family, which ran for 2 seasons in 2015 and 2016. On camera, Toby was the firm father figure who pushed his kids towards excellence in music. The whole family was homeschooled and deeply Christian. The Willis family had a well-known tragic backstory. In 1994, Toby's father, a Baptist preacher, was driving 6 of his 9 children from Chicago to Wisconsin when their van ran over metal debris from a truck and exploded, killing all 6 children. Toby and 2 other siblings were not in the van. The investigation revealed the truck driver had bribed a state worker for his license, leading to a massive corruption scandal that ended with 75 state employees and the governor of Illinois going to prison. The surviving family received a $100 million settlement. Toby and Brenda used that money to move to Nashville in 2001 and bought country singer Randy Travis's compound in nearby Ashland City. The home burned down in 2005 while the family was away, and they moved into a rented log cabin that became the setting for the TLC show. On September 9, 2016, Toby Willis was arrested in Greenville, Kentucky just hours before the family was scheduled to perform a concert. He was taken from the venue in handcuffs on a fugitive warrant. The Tennessee Bureau of Investigation had begun looking into Willis after reports surfaced that he'd had a encounter with an underage girl roughly 12 years earlier. After Willis was hauled away, his family went ahead and performed the show anyway. TLC cancelled the show immediately. They scrubbed it from all digital platforms and said they'd been shocked by the arrest. Willis's eldest daughter, Jessica, later came forward publicly, writing that she had been abused by her father for as long as she could remember, starting around the age of 3. On July 11, 2017, Willis pleaded guilty to 4 counts of child rape in Cheatham County Circuit Court. He received 2 25-year sentences and 2 40-year sentences, all to run concurrently and served in full, totaling 40 years. The family released a statement through their attorney thanking law enforcement and saying they had cooperated fully with the investigation. They noted that while the criminal case was over, the impact on the victims would last longer. Jessica Willis eventually left the family band, launched a solo career, and continued to speak publicly about surviving her father's abuse.
You know, I make real versions of this, right?
Definitely.
So what are you doing?
I was getting a little bit bored shooting just a regular old Taurus. There's one thing that'll definitely make it stand out, and that's the bell on the end.
What the hell you want to do? Dude, it's a breech loader. You don't need the damn blunderbuss in. That's the whole point of a contained cartridge.
Hey, let's go wild and do something just completely off the wall.
What do you think the bell's gonna do?
Well, there might be some effect, might spread the pattern out just a little bit.
The flared bell is going to have no effect whatsoever on the shot pattern.
I think we can still work something out and get it going.
I ain't putting a bell on the end of a revolver.
Wanting to put a blunderbuss bell on the end of that revolver? The whole idea is ridiculous, and that is the very word that's going to get attached to anybody that's seen with it. Well, ain't going to be me.
Will Hayden was the star of Sons of Guns, a Discovery Channel reality series that ran from 2011 to 2014. The show was built around his custom gun shop, Red Jacket Firearms, in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and followed Hayden and his family as they took on specialized weapons builds. His daughter, Stephanie, and her husband, Chris Ford, were also part of the cast. The show ran for 5 seasons and turned Hayden into a minor celebrity in the firearms world. Hayden was a Marine veteran and a lifelong gun enthusiast who founded Red Jacket Firearms and built it into a business with enough personality to catch the attention of TV producers. On camera, he played the gruff but lovable Southern gun guy. On August 11, 2014, Hayden was arrested and charged with of a juvenile and aggravated crimes against nature. He told the press the accusations came from a bitter ex-girlfriend. Within weeks, he was hit with an additional charge of aggravated rape of a child. The victim was his own daughter, who said the abuse began when she was 11. Discovery Channel cancelled Sons of Guns immediately. They pulled the show from every platform and scrubbed it from their website. But then, things got worse. Hayden's eldest daughter, Stephanie, who had initially defended him, changed course and accused him of raping and abusing her as a child as well. As the case moved through the courts, a second victim came forward, a woman now in her late 30s, who said Hayden had raped her in the early 1990s when she was 12, so investigators were now looking at abuse spanning roughly 2 decades, with victims on both ends of that timeline. Hayden's 3 private lawyers were eventually relieved from that case at their own request, citing unmet conditions for their representation. He ended up with a public defender. On April 7, 2017, Hayden was found guilty on 2 counts of aggravated rape and 1 count of forcible. On May 11th, he was sentenced to 2 concurrent life terms plus a consecutive 40 years. No eligibility for parole, probation, or suspension of sentence. He didn't speak at the sentencing. When his older victim walked out to the courtroom, she smiled and said, "Thank God." But that wasn't the end of it. In July 2017, Hayden pleaded no contest to an additional rape and incest charges in Livingston Parish and received a 3rd life sentence. He was transferred to Louisiana State Penitentiary, where he remains today. Red Jacket Firearms legally separated from Hayden shortly after his arrest. The brand continued without him, but the damage was done. Hayden had spent years cultivating an image as a patriotic family man who built cool guns for a living. Behind that, he had been horribly abusing children for over 20 years. James Tim Norman was a cast member on OWN's Welcome to Sweetie Pies, a reality show about his mother, Miss Robbie Montgomery's soul food restaurant chain in St. Louis. The show premiered in 2011 and ran for 9 seasons, and Norman was presented as a reformed ex-con turned family businessman. He'd done 10 years for armed robbery as a teenager, and the cameras loved his comeback story. His nephew, Andre Montgomery Jr., was also on the show. Andre was 21, had a young son, and had been brought back to St. Louis by Norman himself. What the family didn't know was that in October 2014, Norman and his insurance agent had taken out a life insurance policy on Andre, worth roughly $450,000. Norman was the sole beneficiary. Andre had no idea the policy existed. The applications were full of fabricated information about Andre's income and employment. Text messages later showed Norman telling the insurance agent to impersonate Andre during phone verification calls with the insurance companies. They filed at least 5 fraudulent applications over the next year. In one text from September 2015, Norman wrote that Andre, quote, ain't gonna be around much longer. Andre seemed to sense something was wrong. He texted his grandmother that Tim was after him and left St. Louis for a while. He came back in early 2016. On March 14, 2016, Norman flew from Los Angeles to St. Louis. He recruited Tarika Ellis, an exotic dancer from Memphis he'd been involved with, to track Andre's location throughout the day. He also enlisted Travell Hill to carry out the actual killing. Ellis spent the day communicating with Andre, getting him to share where he was, and relaying that information back to Norman. That evening, Andre texted Ellis the address where he'd be. At approximately 8:02 p.m., Hill shot and killed Andre on Natural Bridge Avenue. 1 minute later, Ellis called Norman. 7 days after the murder, Norman called the insurance company to start collecting. He pursued the claim for years, even hiring an attorney to threaten to sue the insurer for not paying out. Unfortunately for him, he never collected a dime. The case went cold for a while, but in 2019, the FBI got involved. Investigators compiled over 7,000 pages of cell phone records tying Norman, Ellis, and Hill together on the day of the murder. Flight records, bank deposits, and years of text messages between Norman and the insurance agent filled in the rest. Norman was arrested in August 2020 in Jackson, Mississippi. Both Hill and Ellis eventually pleaded guilty and testified against him. Norman took the stand at trial and cried, claiming he only wanted Andre confronted about a burglary, not killed. The jury didn't believe him. In September 2022, he was found guilty on all counts. He was sentenced to 2 consecutive life terms in March 2023. Hill got 32 years and Ellis got 3. Norman appealed the sentence but was rejected in July 2024, and as such, he's never getting out. Ryan Alexander Jenkins was a Canadian real estate developer from Calgary who appeared on 2 VH1 reality shows in 2009. He was a contestant on Megan Wants a Millionaire, a dating competition where wealthy bachelors competed for former Playboy model Megan Hausman. He placed 3rd.
Hello, Megan.
Look, we're matching already.
We are matching. Have you met any Canadians before?
Never.
Well, it's about time, don't you think?
Absolutely.
Can I let you in on a little secret?
Please do. Ryan whispers in my ear, you're gonna love Canadian bacon.
Save me a spot for dinner, okay?
He also appeared on I Love Money 3, which was filmed in Mexico that summer, and actually won the $250,000 grand prize, though this season would never air. Before any of this, Jenkins had a domestic violence conviction in Canada. In 2009, he was charged with assault causing bodily harm against a girlfriend in Calgary. He pleaded guilty to common assault and got 15 months on probation. That should have kept him off television, but the production company's background check firm subcontracted the Canadian portion of screening to another company, which reportedly never checked the RCMP criminal database. They came back saying Jenkins had no record, and he was cleared to go on camera. In March 2009, between filming the two shows, Jenkins met Jasmine Fiore at a casino event in Las Vegas. They married 2 days later at a chapel on the Strip. The relationship turned violent almost immediately. By April, Jenkins had been charged with battery in Clark County, Nevada, after allegedly hitting Fiore during an argument, and a trial was set for December. On the night of August 13, 2009, Jenkins and Fiore checked into a hotel in the San Diego area for a poker tournament, before getting into a major fight. Hotel surveillance showed Jenkins returning to the room alone around 4:30 in the morning. He was seen leaving with luggage a few hours later. Fiore was never captured on camera again. On August 15th, a man searching through a dumpster in Buena Park, California, found a suitcase containing a woman's body. Her teeth had been removed and her fingerprints had been cut off, and she had been strangled to death. That same evening, Jenkins walked into a West Hollywood sheriff station and reported Fiore missing, claiming that she'd gone to run errands and hadn't come back. 3 days later, the body was identified through serial numbers on Fiore's breast implants, which are tracked by manufacturers under FDA regulations, and Jenkins was charged with first-degree murder. By that point, he was already running. He drove to Washington State, retrieved his speedboat, and crossed into Canada by water, landing near Point Roberts and walking across the border on foot. His half-sister reportedly drove him to the Thunderbird Motel in Hope, British Columbia, about 150 kilometers east of Vancouver, and she paid cash for him to stay there for 3 nights. On August 23rd, when Jenkins didn't check out, the motel manager entered the room and found him dead. He had hanged himself. A document on his laptop was addressed to his family, but made no mention of Jasmine Fiore. VH1 pulled Megan Once a Millionaire after 3 episodes and cancelled I Love Money 3 entirely. The background check company that missed Jenkins' record lost its biggest clients and laid off most of its staff. And because Jenkins took his own life, he never faced any justice for the brutal murder of Jasmine Fiore. And that's the end of the video, folks. I'm sure some people will be leaving comments saying that Don Vito shouldn't have been on here, and to that I say, if he just kept his hands to himself, he wouldn't be in this video now, would he? I'd like to thank all of my patrons for their continued support, especially those whose names you're seeing on screen now, particularly Sonny Hauser, Charlie Boyle, Bailey Cosmic Black Metal 96, Mimi, Pizza Guy 111, Light Into Sunlight, KJ Musical, Losanna, Brandon Field, Helen Korn, Kyle, BAN, Brendan O'Connell, Adam Clayton, Count Ligula, Sray Wolf, Danny Jade, Paul Mendoza, Alex Christmas, Bella Schwartz, Belle Siegel, Stimulate, Inquis Cesarius, and Dick the Cock Johnson and the Woodmaster of WrestleMania 69 or Maybe Not Dude. Be sure to give this video a like, leave a comment, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you all next time. Goodbye.